Okay, so now we're going to show you how to swap out for your own prefab. So I'm just going to go on the asset store and I'm going to download the free built-in CiDy from Kitbash 3D. I think it's a good model set and it's great for demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and import that package. Now we're going to be dealing with the theme folder structure. So as you can see on the right there in the CiDy editor window, there's the district theme, downtown, and then underneath that is the add custom district theme. We're going to be using that to allow the system to create the folder structure we need. And then we will set up our prefabs and we'll put those prefabs into their designated folders. And then the system will pull those prefabs from those folders. And we'll go over that in a moment. The prefabs, these CiDy prefabs are all contained into one, but you can have ones that have sub assets in it. You know what I'm talking about, where they're basically modular and they're pieced together. But you'll have to have that completed model into a prefab format, of course. Doesn't matter if there's a bunch in there, it can handle that. It's fine. But just so you know, and we're going to go over, you're going to want to orient these with the Z axis of the parent transform facing in the forward direction that you want the building to have as its forward direction. And I'll show you that here in a moment. May take a second for these to import. They're a decent amount of textures, but I think they're high quality models. They also have the HDR. I don't know if you've seen that, but they have the built-in and the HDR. So if you're working with HDR, obviously you'll want to use those ones and not these built-ins. And as of the making of this video, this is for CiDy 2.6, but most likely this won't change much because this has always been the general way of how the system works with the prefabs. Later, I'll probably have to do another video once we bring in our procedural facades. So there'll be two workflows. There'll be one where you have prefabs, and then you'll have also the option of built-in procedural facades made out of modular pieces. But we're not there yet. So for now, this is just going to be setting up your own prefabs. And we'll go over the buildings. We'll go over the cell streetlights, cell clutter, and the street stop sign / traffic light, whatever you want it to be there, just whatever prefab you want at that point. You'll also look on the right, you can see that there's a left-hand traffic toggle underneath the placement settings at near the bottom. Pressing that right now currently only determines where the stop sign / traffic light's going to be spawned, whether on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's left-hand traffic. Like some models I have, they were just oriented that way, so you can use left-hand traffic to get them to populate the right way. But if you're doing stop signs, then you would use left-hand traffic if you're working in a UK-based driving system or what have you. But if it's American-based, you can just leave that off and it'll populate on the right side. Two 2.6 comes with lane types. We've added multi-lanes. So now you can have a 1-lane, 2-lane, 4-lane, or a 6-lane as presets. I mean, you can always go back and, of course, set your own textures manually, but we thought it would be nice to have the convenience of presets. It does change the road a little since 2.5. 2.5 was a more simple polygon with one texture applied that also had markings and everything on it. So now we've kind of separated that out so you can have more granular control. So now the markings of the road mesh, which again, you can have your own textures applied, and the in this case it's asphalt texture, but whatever texture you want, it could be dirt, gravel, what have you. And you don't have to have the markings. You can always turn them off manually for now. I'll probably add a toggle to where you can just turn off the markings entirely. But eventually I'm going to add a dirt as a default, so you won't have to do that. You can just click dirt and then change your material. So a lot of textures. In hindsight, I probably should have imported these first, but I wanted to show you from the very raw input so you can just repeat my steps if you wanted to use these models. But again, like I said, you'll see these models are already pretty much all combined. They don't have to be. You can have ones with nested prefab mesh renders in them. They can have multiple mesh renders. The system will handle that. That's fine. But just the general point is the top parent transform z-axis represents your forward. So when the system's placing the buildings, it's using that to represent that building's forward direction. So that's really the main thing you need to keep in mind, and the position of it as far as height goes. And I'll show you that. Okay, so now we have these three standard themes. I want to add a new theme. I'm going to call it CiDy. And we'll just click add theme. It'll confirm, yes. Now we're going to create the theme. Now I'm going to show you in resources, CiDy resources. You've got a new theme folder here, and buildings, clutter, and street light. We don't need that right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up the buildings. And first, I will open up the sample scene that came with CiDy. So we can just do it right in there. Okay, so here's all the buildings. So we'll start with the packed set of buildings on the left here. They're packed in a prefab. We'll go ahead and unpack these completely, and then I'll just start setting these up one at a time. So I'm going to create an empty. I'm going to set it to 0 to make things easy. I'll go ahead and name it the same. My copy and paste isn't working. Copy, paste. Oh, okay. Okay, so now we go ahead and move that out. And we're going to 0 this prefab down so that we can line this up. So you can see that building's off. It's not on its center. And that's fine. We'll just center up the parent, and then we'll have to eye this because it's not actually centered. See, that's the center of that, and it's off. So we're going to center that up with the center of the parent transform. So there's the parent transform. Center this up. Now let's look at the front. We want to make sure the height is about at the bottom. So if you look at the parent transform here, it's a little bit above the bottom, so that's probably good. So I'll go ahead and make that a prefab. And just to confirm, I'm going to throw that back out. Yeah, I thought that was backwards. Yeah. So I'm going to change the name of this parent so I don't get confused. We'll put it on, we'll just add holder to it. So reline that up. Put holder so I know it's the parent. Okay, so now we line it up. And then we will nest this into the parent so that the parent transform, there's the z-axis, that's our forward. That is the forward I want. It's pretty centered. And now we'll nest it and now make that the prefab. Replace. Okay, great. Just double check. There we go. Okay, so now you can see the parent transform is facing forward the direction I want and it's centered. So now we'll do these next buildings the same exact way. Create an empty, holder, zero it out, copy the name over, add holder. Just for my example, you can obviously name it whatever you want. Zeroing both out. Now this one's rotated as well. So I'm going to rotate that because I actually want this to be forward and I want it to be, in this case, flat. You can do it however you want, but I want these to all be facing forward so they can get nice and tightly packed in when I create a cell. So we'll line up now on the height side. It's a little above. I'm going to bring that down. Okay, that's not too bad. Go ahead and nest it. And there we go. So there's the front. On to the next one. And this is pretty much the same process for all these buildings. I'm just nesting them because their transforms are off. Now, if you're building, I'll show you later the clutter ones. They're actually fine the way they are. So I can just go ahead and drag and drop them as is, and I don't have to nest them. These ones need to be nested because for some reason they decided that they were going to have them off center. Most of the time, your single prefabs aren't going to be off center like this, but if you run into it, you can just nest them, and then that works just as well. Because the CiDy placement is going off that top transform. That's the best example it has. So it goes off the top transform and it takes into account all of the mesh renderer bounding boxes, and that's how it actually packs buildings together. So I'm going to do the next one, pull it out, turn that off so I can see what's going on. Building D, go ahead and create the holder. Now we'll zero out this because this again is off center. Yeah, it's way off center, so we're gonna nest that one as well. It's a little high, bring that down. And there we go, so that should be good. For this example, yeah, that looks fine. Bring it up a little. There we go. Okay, now the main, this one again, this is another one that's, it's got a 45 in it. And I want that. So this is a good example where it's, it doesn't have to be squared. I like the 45 and I want this face here to be the front. So we're going to line this up. So there it is, a little high. We'll bring that down. There we go. Look at the top. Looks pretty centered. That should place well. Now we'll nest it and create a prefab. Okay. So that's the buildings. So now that we've got the buildings, we'll go back to our sample scene. And we'll bring it back our editor. First, we'll dock the window. And now over on the right is the district. I'm going to choose the new theme. And now I can just click out like any other time. And it's going to populate using those buildings. And there you go. So as you can see, that's all it takes to swap out your prefabs. Just making sure that the proper parent transform is facing in the forward direction you want. And if you have to nest, you can nest them. That's fine. I'm just going to curve these roads, get rid of those intersections. We'll do a little blend. Okay, so now we want to go over the clutter and the lights. So let's look at that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clear that out. So now we've got the buildings. So now we want to do some clutter. So let's go back to our prefabs from the NeoCiDy. And we'll take a look at what we want to throw on our clutter. Now clutter is just going to be objects you would have along your sidewalk, so benches and whatnot. But with the CiDy kit, this Neo kit, we've got these two items that I think will work well enough for our example. So I'm going to, they actually are fine. You can see the parent transform in it. It's already facing forward. Both of them look fine. I don't need to do anything to them. I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop them right into the clutter folder. Yes, original prefab and original prefab. There we go. So now that's it. That's all I had to do. Those ones are nice and easy. Now this I'm going to use as a street light. It also has a fine prefab setup, so I'm just going to use it as is. So now we can go to our sample scene and we'll bring out the editor window. We'll dock it and choose Neo CiDy. And there we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and click out another cell. Now if we zoom in, well, let me blend it, and then we'll zoom in. Oh, turn off this lighting. You can see, and there you go. There's your clutter. Now you'll notice the lights did not populate, and I'm going to explain why. With CiDy 2.6, this may change, but with 2.6, it's looking for a specific name as well. And that name should be street light. So because it's not, there's the clutter objects, they're there, but the street light is not. You can see the street light's missing. So there's the clutter, pulled them and it populated them. And you can also change the spacing right here. Change the spacing, hit generate cell. And now you can see the spacing is 15 meters apart. We'll put that back. We'll put it to 5. That's obviously crowded. We'll go ahead and put it back to 30 defaults. And now let's look at seeing that why that light didn't populate, because the name's not right. So let's go ahead and change that name to street light, just like this, capital S, capital L. Now, because it's named street light, it will accept that and it'll know, yeah, that's what we want. And we were going to populate that. So there it is. So now you can see the clutter and the street light. Let me move that cell. The clutter and the street light. There you go. So same settings here. You can click on the cell. There's your light. You can click on the cell, and right here is where the prefab's been pulled. Now you can also manually change it. Right now it's going to pull it because auto fills on. It's going to always pull it because it's looking for that street light. If I change the name, not right name, and I hit generate, now it's empty because it's looking for that name. That's going to probably change in the future. Before we didn't have this folder structure, so it was actually looking for the name. So that's why it's still like that. So that's something to keep in mind for 2.6. If you just name it streetlight, it'll pull it. And again, you can change the settings. There's 5 meters apart, however many meters you want. Also, contour sidewalk lights is another thing you can use. It's default off, so it's always world axis up. But if I click contour, it will now contour to the road angle. So this road's not too extreme, but you can still tell it's slanted. And that's the basic setup for your themes. With 2.6, there's a good slant. You can see it's slanted. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn that back off, and it'll use the world axis up. So there you go. Most of the time with lights, it'll be world axis up. That's why it's default off. And with clutter, it's default on. So you have that option for both. So we'll go ahead and blend. And there you go. Now my Neo CiDy prefabs are set up, and the system was pulling them properly. And I can just click out. Now, what we didn't talk about was the stop sign or traffic light or whatever you want to populate at the end of your intersections. Anytime there's an intersection, it's going to pull this. Now that prefab will actually go in the same folder as the street light, but its name will be different. That's why currently the name thing's still there. I may end up changing it. I may end up adding another folder. I don't know. But right now we're using the name structure. Okay, so now let's go over how do you want you to populate your traffic intersections. So for this example, let me click out a node, click out a road here. For the intersections, there's a T intersection. I want to make it a 4-way, and we'll blend so you can see better. And now the default is this traffic light. Now it's pulling this out of the resources, but if I go on the road, you can see here, it's called stop sign, but it's actually a traffic light model. But that's the name structure it's looking for. So stop sign. Again, this may change, but in 2.6, it's looking for the name stop sign. So So we're going to just put a different prefab and we'll put it in the NeoCiDy folder. So I just changed it to stop sign just to show the example. So now I've changed the name to stop sign. You can manually place a hit regenerate, that works as well. But now that I've changed the name in the theme, when I go to the global district theme setting and I click out, it will automatically pull that because that's what I'm saying. I'm saying as this is the stop sign, this is what I want to automatically populate in that theme. So that's how you can have different stop signs as you change themes. So there you go. So now it's populated that as my quote unquote stop sign because of the name. Now, if I change the name, it's going to go back to the default. And the default is the original stop sign, which in this case is a traffic light model. Doesn't matter what district theme I'm on. Because the district theme doesn't have a stop sign in its theme folder, it's using the global theme model. So that's why that's there. It's just the backup. So you can set a specific per the theme, or you can keep the global default. It's your choice. And of course, you can change the default global as well, whatever theme you want, as long as it keeps that name structure, stop sign, both S's are capitalized. So now that it's back to stop sign, it's pulling it for that district theme. So you obviously you can see now this is per road. That's why that one's still there, because it's per road. But I manually changed that now. So you can manually change it as well and click regenerate. And that's basically the gist. So now you can see how quickly you can set up a bunch of themes. And then once you have your themes set up, you can quickly start clicking out just different themes and transitioning pretty smoothly just using the global settings. So these are your default residential street stop signs, street lights, etc. So just to show you, doesn't matter what theme it's in, it's going to look for those themes first and then fall back to the default globals. So since I put that in that residential theme and I clicked out residential theme roads, it's going to pull that stop sign over the global. So very simple concept. Like I said, currently under the streetlight folder, the naming structure is all that matters. So you have streetlight for your streetlights, obviously, and stop sign for your intersection prefabs. So there we go. Change the theme again. I removed it, so now it's using the global. Back to the global set stop sign.